My name is Daniel Hayes. I'm 28 years old, and I've worked my whole life to get to where I am today. I'm not a millionaire, but I've built something stable, a comfortable apartment in downtown Chicago, a steady job at a marketing firm, and a life that I could finally call my own. It wasn't perfect, but it was mine. I'd worked long hours, saved meticulously, and learned to appreciate the simple things in life. But all of that was about to change. One Tuesday afternoon, I was sitting in my office, sipping my second cup of coffee, when my phone rang. I didn't recognize the number, but I answered anyway. "Hello, is this Mr. Hayes?" The voice on the other end was calm but formal. "Yeah, speaking." "Who's this?" I said, trying to balance my attention between the call and the email I was drafting. "This is Stephanie from Fifth Avenue Bank. We need to discuss a loan that was recently approved under your name." I sat up straight. "A loan? What the hell? A loan?" I asked, trying to suppress the growing panic rising in my chest. "I didn't apply for any loan." There was a long pause before she responded. "The loan in question was approved for $15,000 about 3 months ago. We noticed no payments have been made, and we just wanted to check if there was an issue with your payment schedule." I felt my heart skip a beat. "What do you mean a loan in my name? I didn't apply for any loan. There must be some mistake." I was already on edge with the pressure of deadlines and the usual work stress, but now this? The world suddenly felt like it was tilting on its axis. How could this be possible? I hadn't taken out any loan, let alone a $15,000 one. The woman on the other end of the line continued, "The loan was processed under your name and transferred to an account ending in 9876. We can provide you with the transfer details if you'd like to look into it further." My stomach twisted. That account number. It sounded eerily familiar. There was only one person who could be behind this, and I hated the thought of it. "Wait, that account, who is it linked to?" I asked, holding my breath. "It's linked to an account under your father's name." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My blood ran cold. My mind raced. The account, of course, it was his. I hadn't seen it coming, but now everything made sense. My father, he had done this. Without another word, I hung up the phone and grabbed my jacket. I had to get to the bottom of this. I couldn't just sit back and let this happen. I immediately called my mother. She picked up after the first ring, her voice warm as always. "Dan, sweetheart, what's up?" "Mom," I said, my voice tight with anger, "explain to me why there's a $15,000 loan under my name that got transferred to Dad's account. And why the hell wasn't I told about it?" There was a heavy silence on the line. I could hear her breathing, slow and careful, as though she was weighing her words. "Well, son," she began, "we needed it. We've been struggling a bit with some things, and we didn't want to burden you." "Struggling?" I interrupted, the words coming out of my mouth with more force than I intended. "You took out a loan in my name without asking me. That's not struggling, that's stealing." "Please, don't shout," she said softly. "It wasn't like that, Daniel. We didn't think it would be a big deal. We just needed a little help. Your father's health has been deteriorating, and with the medical bills piling up, we had no choice." I felt a lump form in my throat, and I sat down on the couch, my head spinning. "But you didn't ask me, Mom. You didn't even tell me. You just took the money and put it in Dad's account. How is that okay?" "Sweetheart, we've always been there for you," she said, trying to calm me down, "and you've always been the one to help when we needed you. You have a good job, a stable life. It was only a temporary solution. We'll pay it back as soon as we can." I closed my eyes, trying to hold back the anger that was boiling up inside me. "This isn't just a small favor, Mom. This is betrayal. You took my name and ruined my credit, all without even asking. You used me." She hesitated for a moment, then sighed. "We only did it because we knew you could handle it. You're in a good position, Daniel. You're the one who can help us, and we didn't want to worry you." The more she spoke, the more the rage inside me grew. My head felt like it was going to explode. No. This isn't help. This is manipulation. You used my name and my future without even thinking about the consequences. I stood up abruptly, my fists clenched. I'm going to fix this, I said, my voice cold. And trust me, you're not going to get away with this. I didn't wait for her response. I ended the call, the weight of the betrayal pressing down on me like a ton of bricks. How could they do this to me? I had worked so hard to build a life for myself. Now they had dragged me into their mess, and I wasn't going to stand for it. The rest of the day passed in a blur. I spent hours at the bank, trying to understand how this had happened. The loan had been processed under my name, and there were even papers that seemed to have my signature on them. But there was something off about it. It didn't add up. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the conversation with my mother in my head. How could they have done this to me? I thought about all the times I had helped them, all the sacrifices I had made to support them. And now, they had crossed the line. I grabbed my phone and scrolled through my contacts. I needed to talk to someone, anyone, who could help me navigate this mess. My best friend, Chris, was the first person I called. Dan? What's going on? You sound off, Chris said when he picked up. I'm in deep shit, I said, frustration lacing my voice. My parents took out a loan in my name without asking me, and now I'm stuck with it. Chris was quiet for a moment, processing what I had said. That's seriously messed up, man. What are you going to do? I'm going to fix it, I replied, my voice firm. I'm going to make sure they pay for what they did. And that was the moment I made the decision. I wasn't going to let them get away with it. I didn't care how close we were, how many times they'd helped me in the past. This was different. This was my future they were playing with, and I wasn't going to let it slip away without a fight. The next morning, I woke up with a mission. I wasn't going to let this slip by. The feeling of betrayal from my parents weighed heavily on my chest as I made my way to the bank again. The loan was still on my record, and it wasn't just a simple mistake. There were documents, signatures that weren't mine, or at least, not in the way they should have been. The situation was escalating, and I needed answers. I arrived at the Fifth Avenue Bank, my heart pounding. I had already arranged a meeting with the bank manager, Ms. Eleanor Finch, and was determined to get to the bottom of this mess. Miss Finch was in her late 40s, with sharp glasses perched on the edge of her nose. She greeted me with a calm smile, but I could see the hesitation in her eyes when she looked at me. She'd clearly been briefed about the issue. Mr. Hayes, I understand your frustration, she said, ushering me into her office. We're going to get this sorted out. I know this is an unfortunate situation, and I'll help you in any way I can. I sat down across from her, trying to keep my emotions in check. I couldn't afford to lose control, not yet. I want to know how this happened, I said firmly, leaning forward. Who processed the loan, and how could it get approved in my name without my knowledge? Miss Finch clicked a few keys on her computer, her fingers moving quickly over the keyboard. I'm seeing here that the loan application was submitted online, she said, glancing up at me. It was approved through our digital platform. All the necessary information was provided, and the loan was transferred into your father's account, as per the request. What do you mean, as per the request? I demanded, my voice rising. I didn't make a request. My father didn't either. She looked at me sympathetically. Mr. Hayes, the digital application was completed with information that matched your records. Your father's account was linked as a secondary contact, which is common in family-based applications. It appears that an address confirmation and a simple identity check were the only validations needed. I assure you, everything seemed legitimate at the time of processing. I blinked in disbelief. Are you telling me that someone used my information, my identity, to take out a loan without my consent, and you just processed it like that? We follow protocol, Mr. Hayes, she replied calmly. But if you're saying this wasn't authorized, we'll need to investigate further. We can't reverse the loan immediately without a proper review. However, we'll do our best to resolve this issue. My frustration boiled over. This is insane. Someone took advantage of me. I don't care about protocols, I need this fixed now. Miss Finch raised her hand slightly, signaling for me to calm down. I understand your anger, but I need to take the proper steps to ensure everything is handled legally. This isn't something we can just undo without a thorough review. In the meantime, we'll place a hold on your account to prevent any further actions until we can get to the bottom of it. The last part gave me a small sense of relief. But it wasn't enough. I was still stuck with the debt, still facing the consequences of something I didn't even do. After the meeting, I left the bank feeling like I was sinking deeper into a hole I couldn't climb out of. As I walked back to my apartment, the weight of the situation hit me harder than ever. I needed to confront my father. This wasn't just a matter of paperwork anymore, it was personal. They had crossed a line, and I was going to make them face the consequences of their actions. When I got home, I called my father's phone. It rang a few times before he picked up. "Dan, what's going on?" His voice was low and tired, as always. He'd been dealing with health issues for the past few years, and I knew he wasn't in the best shape, physically or mentally. "Dad, we need to talk." "I just found out about the loan," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, even though inside, I was shaking. "What the hell is going on?" There was a long silence on the other end of the line. I could hear him sigh deeply. "Listen, son, I didn't want to drag you into this. We were just trying to make ends meet. Your mother and I, we didn't think it would cause such a big problem." "You didn't think it would cause a problem?" I snapped. "You took out a loan in my name, Dad. You didn't think that would be a problem?" "I didn't sign anything, and now I'm left to deal with it." He was quiet for a moment, and I could hear him shifting in his chair. "Look, I know you're angry. I'm not proud of what we did. But we were desperate, and I wasn't in any shape to go to the bank myself. I didn't want to worry you, but we needed the money. Your mom's health, the bills. I thought you'd understand. I don't care about your reasons." I shouted, unable to contain my anger anymore. "You violated my trust, Dad. You used my name without even telling me. You put me in debt, and now I have to fix it. You've put everything I've worked for at risk." He sighed again, his voice cracking slightly. "I never wanted to hurt you, Dan. I didn't know what else to do. We were drowning, and I thought I could fix it. By using me? By stealing from me?" My voice wavered as the anger and hurt mixed together. "You think I'm just some safety net for your mistakes?" There was a long pause before he finally spoke again. "I'm sorry. I really am. I should have been honest with you from the beginning. But it's too late now. I understand if you don't want to talk to me right now, but please, try to understand. We didn't mean for it to go this far." I felt a pang of guilt tug at me, but it didn't change the fact that they had crossed a line. "I'll try to figure something out," I said, my voice quieter now. "But this isn't just going to blow over. We're going to fix this, and I'll make sure it doesn't happen again." I ended the call and sat down in my living room, staring at the empty space in front of me. My heart was heavy with the weight of everything that had happened. I didn't want to hurt my parents, but I couldn't just let this go. I was determined to take control of my life again. I had to fix this mess, not just for me, but for the future I had worked so hard to build. And if that meant confronting my parents head-on, then that's what I was going to do. The next few days were a blur of phone calls, legal consultations, and sleepless nights. I spent hours on the phone with lawyers, trying to understand my options. Each conversation seemed to only make the situation more complicated. The loan wasn't just some minor mistake, it was an illegal act. The more I dug into the details, the clearer it became. My father had forged my signature. And that meant more than just financial consequences. It was a betrayal of the worst kind. He'd used my name and my trust to cover his mistakes, and I had no way of knowing just how deep the hole went. I couldn't just ignore it. Not after everything that had happened. Not when I had worked so hard to build my own future, only to have it threatened by his reckless actions. It was Thursday evening when I finally decided to confront my parents again. I couldn't sit back and wait any longer. The damage had been done, and it was time to make them understand the full extent of what they had done, not just to me, but to their own family. I picked up my phone and dialed my mother's number. She picked up on the second ring, her voice full of warmth, as always. "Dan. How are you? Is everything all right?" I hesitated, feeling the weight of the words I was about to say. "We need to talk, Mom. It's about the loan." Her tone shifted immediately. "Oh, honey, not this again." "Mom, this isn't something we can ignore," I said, my voice tight. "You both lied to me. You put my name on that loan, and you didn't even tell me about it. This isn't something I can just let go. I need you to understand how serious this is." There was a long silence on the other end. I could hear her breathing, as if she were collecting her thoughts. Finally, she spoke, her voice quieter now. "I know, Dan. I know. But your father was under so much pressure. He didn't know what else to do. I don't care about his pressure." I snapped. "He's been lying to me, using my identity without my permission. And now I'm stuck with a debt that I didn't even know existed. Do you realize what this means? I could lose everything. I could lose my job. My credit. This is more than just a financial mistake. This is a violation of trust. Dan, we never meant to hurt you. You have to understand that." Her voice cracked as she spoke, the weight of the situation hitting her harder than I'd expected. "I know we messed up, and I'm sorry. But I didn't want to drag you into our mess. I thought you'd be better off without knowing." I didn't know how to respond. A part of me wanted to believe her, wanted to believe that this had all been some misguided attempt to protect me. But the more I thought about it, the more the anger swelled inside me. They had made a choice, and that choice had been to betray me. To put me in a situation where I had no control. "No, Mom," I said, my voice firm. "I don't care about the excuses anymore. I'm not a kid. I'm an adult. I need to be able to trust you, and you've broken that trust. This isn't just about money. It's about integrity. It's about respect. And right now, I don't feel respected." Her voice softened, and I could hear the regret in her words. "I know, son. I know. We were wrong. But please, just don't turn your back on us." I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. "I need you and Dad to understand that I can't fix this for you. This isn't something I can sweep under the rug. I'm going to have to take legal action. I don't have a choice." "I understand," she said, her voice trembling. "We'll figure this out, Dan. We'll do whatever it takes to make things right." The conversation ended with a heavy silence, and I couldn't shake the feeling that nothing was truly resolved. It wasn't just about fixing the financial mess. It was about rebuilding the relationship with my parents, something that felt almost impossible in that moment. Trust, once broken, is difficult to repair. And no amount of apologies could undo the damage they had done. I didn't have time to dwell on it. The next morning, I received a call from the bank. Miss Finch was on the line again, and her voice was professional but sympathetic. "Mr. Hayes, I have an update for you regarding your account," she said. "We've reviewed the loan application thoroughly. Unfortunately, the documentation provided during the application process was forged, and your name was indeed used without your consent. I'm afraid this is considered identity theft." My stomach sank as she continued. "We've placed a temporary hold on the loan, but you'll need to take further legal action to resolve this. It's going to take time, but we'll cooperate fully to help you." I thanked her and ended the call, feeling a strange mix of relief and dread. At least the bank acknowledged what had happened. But that didn't change the fact that I had to fight to clear my name, fight to protect my future. That afternoon, I hired a lawyer, someone who specialized in identity theft cases. I was lucky to find a reputable firm that had experience dealing with situations like mine. The lawyer, Claire, was sharp and direct. She listened to my story, asked a few pointed questions, and then set to work. "We'll get this fixed, Dan," she assured me, her eyes narrowing as she read through the details. "It's going to be a process, but we'll go after the bank for negligence and your parents for fraud. You don't deserve to bear the brunt of their actions." I felt a sense of empowerment for the first time in days. For so long, I had been a victim, caught in a situation that I didn't understand. But now, I was taking control. I was no longer at the mercy of my parents or the bank. I had a team on my side, and we were going to fight back. But deep down, a part of me knew that the fight wouldn't just be legal, it would be emotional. The hardest part wouldn't be dealing with the bank or the courts. It would be the fallout with my family. No matter how this played out, my relationship with my parents would never be the same. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. Legal meetings, phone calls with the bank, and endless back and forths with my lawyer, Claire, took up most of my time. But while I was busy battling the financial fallout, the emotional toll was something I couldn't ignore. It was a constant weight on my chest, making it hard to breathe. The more I thought about it, the more I realized how much this situation was changing me. I had always been the kind of person who believed that family was everything, that no matter what happened, you could always count on your loved ones to have your back. But now, I wasn't so sure. My parents had crossed a line that couldn't be undone, and I wasn't sure where to go from there. Despite my anger, I still loved them. I still wanted to believe that they cared for me, that this was just some horrible mistake. But with every new discovery, every new conversation with my lawyer, it became clearer that the trust one had placed in them had been shattered. One evening, a few weeks after the confrontation with my mother, I received a call from my father. I hadn't spoken to him directly since that day. He had been quiet, sending me texts with apologies, but I hadn't replied to any of them. I wasn't ready to hear it. Not yet. But this time, I picked up the phone. "Dan," he said, his voice rough, as though he hadn't slept in days. "I need to talk to you. Please." I didn't respond right away, but I could hear the desperation in his voice. It made me hesitate. I wasn't sure if I was ready to hear whatever he had to say, but a part of me wanted to. I needed closure. I needed to know if there was even a chance of salvaging our relationship. "Go ahead," I said, my tone flat, giving him the chance to speak without interruption. "Look, son," he started, his voice breaking. "I know what we did was wrong. I've never been good at asking for help, and I thought if I could just fix everything quickly, you wouldn't have to know. But I made a mistake. A big one. And I'm sorry. More than you'll ever know." The apology felt like a weight lifting from his chest, but I still couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. He wasn't just apologizing for the loan. He was apologizing for the years of avoiding responsibility, for the times when he had let his pride blind him to the consequences of his actions. "I know this is hard for you, son," he continued, his voice growing more desperate. "But please, I'm begging you. Don't let this destroy everything we've built. Don't let this tear our family apart. We'll make it right. I'll do anything. Just, don't shut me out." I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. I could hear the pain in his voice, but that didn't change what had happened. The damage had already been done, and the anger that had been simmering inside me couldn't just disappear because of a few heartfelt words. "Dad," I said, my voice cold and steady, "I don't know if you understand the gravity of what you've done. It's not just about the money. It's about trust. It's about respect. And right now, I don't feel respected." There was silence on the other end of the line. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then, he let out a heavy sigh. "I understand, Dan. I do. I've always wanted what's best for you. I've just never known how to do it the right way. I thought if I could protect you from the mess I made, I'd be doing the right thing. But I was wrong. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that everything he had said was sincere. But part of me knew that words weren't enough. I needed action. I needed to see that he was truly willing to make amends, not just for this incident, but for everything that had come before it. I'm still going through the legal process, I told him, my voice firm. This isn't something that can just be fixed with an apology. I'm going to take this to court. I have to protect myself. I have to make sure this doesn't ruin my future. I understand, he replied quietly. And I'll support whatever you need. Just, please don't give up on us. We're your family, Dan. We love you. His words hung in the air, but I didn't respond. I wasn't sure what to say. Part of me wanted to forgive him, wanted to pretend like everything was fine. But another part of me knew that this was just the beginning of a long and painful journey. I ended the call without saying much else. It wasn't that I didn't want to talk to him, it was just that I couldn't. I wasn't ready to face him, to look him in the eye and pretend like everything was okay. Not when the trust had been so irrevocably broken. As the days went by, I found myself becoming more and more detached. I threw myself into the legal process, focusing on the work at hand, trying to ignore the emotions that swirled beneath the surface. But they were always there, lurking. Every time I picked up the phone or checked my email, I was reminded of the mess my parents had created. And every time I thought about it, the anger and resentment seemed to grow. I couldn't deny it anymore, my relationship with them had changed. It would never be the same. And no matter how hard I tried to hold on to the past, I knew that the future would look very different. Months passed since the call with my father, and the weight of the situation still hadn't lifted. Every day felt like a battle, mentally, emotionally, and even physically. The legal process dragged on, and despite the financial victories I secured, I couldn't help but feel like I was losing something much bigger, my sense of peace, my trust in the people I had always leaned on. The court battles were exhausting, but they were only one part of the story. What really kept me awake at night was the emotional toll. My relationship with my parents had been fractured beyond repair, and as much as I wanted to salvage it, there was a part of me that knew I couldn't go back to what we once had. The anger I'd been holding onto for so long had begun to evolve into something else, something more painful, a quiet sorrow that settled deep in my chest. It wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about everything that had been left unsaid, everything that had been hidden for so long. I realized that all this time, I had been looking for closure from my parents, but the truth was, no one could give me that except myself. The healing had to come from within, and it was something I had to do on my own. It was on one of those long, sleepless nights that I decided to take a break from the constant grind of legalities. I booked a weekend getaway, a quiet cabin by a lake, far from the chaos of the city, the phone calls, and the endless emails. I needed space to think, to breathe, and, most importantly, to reflect. When I arrived, I felt the tension start to drain from my body. The silence was comforting, almost therapeutic. I spent the first day just walking around, taking in the beauty of the surroundings, the towering trees, the calm water, and the distant hills. The peace of the place was a stark contrast to the turmoil I'd been living with for months, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I could finally start to think clearly. That evening, as I sat on the porch with a warm drink in hand, the weight of everything hit me again. It was like a flood of emotions that I had been holding back suddenly surged to the surface. The anger, the betrayal, the hurt, it all came rushing back, and for a moment, I thought I might drown in it. But then, something shifted inside me. I realized that holding on to that anger was only hurting me. It was keeping me tethered to the past, to a version of myself that I didn't want to be anymore. I had spent so much time focusing on what my parents had done to me that I had neglected to ask myself what I needed to move forward. What was it that would bring me peace? I thought back to my conversation with my father. I knew it wasn't perfect, but it had been a start. I had heard his apology, and while it wasn't enough to erase everything, it was a step in the right direction. And for the first time, I saw something in him I hadn't before: vulnerability. He wasn't the infallible figure I had always imagined him to be. He was just a man, with flaws, regrets, and mistakes, trying to make things right in his own way. But even more than that, I realized that forgiveness wasn't about them, it was about me. Forgiveness wasn't about excusing their actions or pretending like nothing had happened. It was about freeing myself from the weight of the past, about taking back control over my own life. It was about choosing to move forward, even when I couldn't change what had already happened. The next morning, I woke up with a new sense of clarity. I didn't have all the answers, but I knew one thing: I had to let go of the anger. It was the only way to heal. And that's when I made the decision. I would forgive my parents, not for them, but for me. Not to let them off the hook, but to reclaim my peace. It wasn't easy. I didn't suddenly forget what had happened, and I certainly didn't erase the hurt. But I began to understand that forgiveness was a process, and that it didn't mean I had to forget. It meant that I could accept what had been done, grieve for what had been lost, and still choose to move forward. It meant releasing the grip that my parents' actions had on my life. A few weeks after my retreat, I made another call. This time, it was to my mother. The conversation was brief, but it was a breakthrough. I told her that I had forgiven her, not because she deserved it, but because I needed it. And though she didn't know how to respond at first, I could hear the relief in her voice when she finally said, "Thank you, Dan. I'm so sorry." It wasn't the end of our journey, but it was a beginning. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was on the path to healing, not just for myself, but for our family. I knew there would be more struggles ahead, and the road would be long, but I also knew that I had taken the most important step. As the legal battles came to a close, and the financial settlements were made, I slowly began to rebuild my life. My career flourished, and I started to feel like myself again. But more than anything, I began to realize that I didn't need to be defined by what my parents had done to me. I was more than their mistakes. I was more than their choices. And while our relationship would never be the same, there was a quiet understanding between us. The foundation of trust may have been cracked, but there was room for something new, something more genuine, something built on mutual respect and understanding. Through all the pain and struggle, I had found my voice. I had learned that standing up for myself wasn't just about setting boundaries, it was about reclaiming my power, my peace, and my future. And in doing so, I had learned to forgive, not just my parents, but myself as well. The journey was far from over, but I finally felt like I was on the right path.